I didn't know a skateboard from an ironing board. I was an apprentice hairdresser.
They're yes and no people. They're can do and can't do. She's just a can-do person.
To hear Mandy's story and to hear about the tragic loss of her son, you know, to have gone through all that and to now have something which, you know, it's a legacy from his life.
I'm doing training every week, helping kids out.
You know, it's a wonderful thing that out of such tragedy, you can have such a positive impact on so many people's lives, and you see that today.
Be able to ride whenever I want all the time, so it's made my riding improve.
No matter what you built in this country now, you ain't gonna match this.
How she's just turned a tragic event into something so positive. It really is something else.
The message is there is no limit. There is no cut-off point where you say, I can only go this far. You can go as far as you want.
I don't think John ever got over the trauma that he suffered as a child. I think that paved the way for all the trauma he certainly suffered as a teenager. And I think paved the way for his life to end the way it did.
When John died, it was the lowest point ever in all our lives. John was a founding member of Adrenaline Alley and a big, massive part of where it all began. It's driven me and Mandy on to keep the story going, to keep it alive, to keep his memory alive, and it's his legacy.
I think the positive side of this tragedy is that it's made such a difference to so many other people, and it has really changed people's lives. And for me, that's why I do this job. That's why I go in the alley every day with a smile on my face. John was born on the 23rd of January 1986, a really happy, exciting, fun baby. And he grew as a normal child up until the age of 2. At the age of 2, he became ill and was hospitalised for a number of weeks. From then on, John remained quite a sick child until the age of 4. He was having neck ache, backache, leg ache. As a single parent, that was quite a difficult time. It was a time where I was trying to look after a sick child, but also work and trying to sort of be confident as a parent, a young parent. And I was very lucky. I met Paul.
I met her in a nightclub and she asked me to dance and I curtly refused. Ended up sharing a taxi home with her and one of her friends, and then started dating. Got to know John. As time went on, I called him my best mate, and we had that kind of relationship. Out of the blue, one day he asked me to be his dad.
By the age of 7, John hadn't gained any weight over the last 3 years. At that point, the doctors were pretty much convinced he was anorexic and actually going through a behavioural problem.
John would be out playing with his friends, he'd come in, he'd vomit and just go back out again. And one thing that really sticks in my mind is when myself and Mandy took John into the bathroom. He was vomiting and he turned around to Mandy and he said, "I'm all right, Mummy. Don't cry, I'll be all right."
Unfortunately, they took the impression that we possibly were abusing him.
This one day, John had gone upstairs and was actually fitting and had turned blue. So it fell on me to sort of resuscitate him, bring him round and sort of try and calm him down. And sort of it was very, very difficult. In the back of my mind, it was still like, this can't be attention seeking because he has no control over a fit.
When he was in the hospital, he was force-fed through tubes into his stomach.
Now, this is something that he would accept with some nurses, and he wouldn't accept with other nurses, to the extent that he was quite prepared to put this tube down himself.
The nurse was there, standing at his side, but he was determined to do that nobody was going to do it for him.
The wards that John were on in the hospitals were quite destructive to him, to be perfectly honest. Basically from the point of view that he didn't have a behavioural problem, so he was around children that had quite severe behavioural problems and anger problems.
When it was time to go, at Great Alderman Street, his bedroom was right above the main entrance, and he used to look down from the main entrance, and we'd stand on the pavement. And he would be standing up in that window. Sorry.
It was always difficult because, you know, you were wandering around that ward with John and seeing all those children, but it was always difficult to place where John fitted within that. And he was so alone, so out of it really, in the sense that he didn't really understand why he was there.
When John was finally diagnosed, he was 9 years old. He collapsed at school. We'd been sent home from Great Ormond Street nearly a year and a half previous to that, and we were told there was nothing wrong with him. It was a bank holiday weekend in April. I phoned Great Ormond Street and said, right, I'm on my way down. They said, no, you can't do that. We have to refer you. You have to come back in. You haven't been here for a year and a half. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I'm getting on the train now. If you don't see me when I get there, I will sit and scream in the corridor until you do listen to me. When we arrived in Great Ormond Street at that point, the only bed available at short notice was on the neurological ward. And they recognised straight away there was a major, major problem.
What is it I expect from life? Is it a fight to stay alive? Or am I just another page? A shattered dream? Don't tell me what I see. It's a long way back down to earth. It's a long way the fall might hurt. I'm falling down.
Having gone through so many years of being told there was nothing wrong, we were taken in and sat down by one of the doctors that had been there for us. And he basically said to us, you know, sit down, this isn't good news. And he said, John's got a brain tumour. And I just remember thinking, they're not his scans, they can't be. We haven't gone through all of this for him to have a brain tumour. And he said it's been the cause of all his problems over the years. So they knew it had to be operated on quickly because it was pressing on certain nerves. And obviously John was showing more and more symptoms and getting sicker and sicker. But the only thing the surgeon did say to us is he will either be deaf, dumb or paralysed or possibly blind. He's not going to come out of this with nothing. The surgery took 8 hours. And we went straight up after the surgery. And when I first looked at him, I thought, you know, what's my child going to be like? Is he going to be brain damaged? Is he going to be able to walk? Is he going to be able to talk? And within 10 minutes of being on the ward, he just lifted his hand and reached out to me. Obviously, for me, that was a heartbreaking moment because I knew he had his sort of senses about him. He picked his leg up and he went, "It's sore, Mum." And I was just like, oh my God, he can talk, he can see me, he can feel me. And for me, that's all I needed. I knew John was strong. I knew whatever happened after that point, we'd get there somehow. When John had his operation, I think I can honestly say there was quite a marked change in his personality. Having a brain injury creates a lot of difficulties in the sense of imbalances within the brain, or potentially physical imbalances. John did have what they call acquired dyspraxia as a result of the surgery. So that used to make him very frustrated because he couldn't do the normal everyday things like, you know, untying laces or buttons. I think John's vulnerabilities came out more when he went back to school, around about 14. He was obviously still looking like he'd sort of gone through chemotherapy. His hair hadn't grown properly. But he wanted to get back to school. He wanted to start living a normal life. But unfortunately, young people being young people sometimes really sort of take note of those vulnerabilities.
And they used to call him names, you know, like Tumour Boy, and they used to raise his little jumper up, you know, his little T-shirt up. And
he used to come home crying, saying, "Mum, I've been through enough. Can't they just leave me alone? I just want to be friendly with people. I don't want them to look at me as a boy with cancer." I think the the solace for John in his spare time was, first of all, he sort of got friendly with a couple of lads in the street and started skateboarding, but he also started playing a slap bass guitar.
His dyspraxia sort of inhibit him playing smaller instruments, but the bass, because it was big and he had big hands, big fingers, it was tailor-made for him.
Loved to be singing, always singing. Music was a big part of John's life. And I think between the music and the skateboarding, it was just this kind of, you're on a board, mate. We don't really care. So that kind of cultural etiquette that was within the sports that we didn't recognise initially was the one thing I think that kind of helped to save John at that point.
It all started when you walked through the door. A friend told me he'd never seen me smile like that before. Playing games and having laughs as well.
I first met John through mutual friends who were skaters. I wasn't a very good skater at the time. I was more into inline skates because it was easier, but I wanted to be cool and fit in. And he helped me do that a little bit. So he was my skater buddy. We loved music, we loved skating, and we loved films, and we just wanted to spend all summers doing that, really. So it was natural. It was more of a friendship, and then it was, we appear to be spending a lot of time together. That kind of relationship.
There was different cultures or different groups of young people that were targeting other crowds of young people.
Every summer, something quite peculiar would happen where you'd have a very large group of young teenagers accompanied by older young adults, just trying to skate and spend time together, have a nice time, just wanted to run around all day and have fun. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you'd have some chav come up, take money off of people, take mobiles off of people, throw skateboards off of buildings, break them, steal them.
The skateboarding and the BMX fraternity, they just wanted to do their sports. They just wanted to carry on doing something they were passionate about, but found it very difficult because they were targeted, and everywhere they went, they were just moved from one place to another, whether it was by local residents, whether it was by the police, whether it was by the groups that were targeting them. They never had peace to do what they wanted to do, and it really channeled their energy into a passion and a focus.
For looking at someone the wrong way. Get your skull stamped on all day. Maybe even get your ribcage stabbed. Left on the concrete, then your wallet grabbed. Why has it got to be like that? Why have we got to run in crews?
John was like any other skateboarder. He was out one night, he had his guitar on his back, he had his skateboard under his arm.
Oi.
He'd been out skateboarding, went on to his music lesson, and when he come from his music lesson, he was waiting for Paul to pick him up. And unfortunately, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and there was 3 local lads that John knew and knew him, and they decided, in their words, you're going to die anyway because you've got a brain tumour, but seeing as you've got a skateboard, we'll give you a hand.
Tumour boy.
And they just beat him really badly, using his skateboard to hit him around the head as well. And I can't describe the devastation that night caused John and the family. He came home that night, obviously bruised and battered. He'd broken ribs, broke his teeth, broke his fingers. And he just looked me in the eye and he said, Mum, he said, the physical attack didn't bother me. My body's took enough physical abuse. He said, but they would have killed me and they didn't care. And I could have died without their help, and I didn't. He hadn't gone out the house for months after the attack, and we couldn't even get him to walk to the end of the street. He was so frightened to go out. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I cannot sit here after being through one hell, go through another. So I decided to sort of say to John, well, you know, why aren't you going to go out, John? You can't let these people beat you. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he didn't believe that. And I said, well, look, let's get all these young people together and let's see what we can do to help find somewhere where these young people can go in a safe environment. And he said to me, Mum, it's not just the skateboarders, it's the BMXers, the inline skaters, the scooter. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean BMXers? I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. But he said, well, let's get them all together and we'll talk you through it, Mum, and tell you what we need. So we went to a community consultation.
I started skating when I was about 11, 12 years old in Corby. There was nowhere at the time. We used to get hassled off the police, skating up at the old Civic, that sort of thing. And then I've known Mandy for years through my family. And then she mentioned that they were going to start up a skate park and just jumped on it straight away.
I think in the early days was very, very obvious that it wasn't just an estate problem. It wasn't actually just a town problem. It was a national problem.
Back in the day, a lot of people thought that Mandy was too aggressive with her ideas, that this would never get done, that nobody would ever fund a product like that. Who cares about a skateboard park? And in reality, historically speaking, who's actually really cared about the kids of Corby?
We did have West Glebe Park, which is an old BMX track that was abused in the 80s and it's now overgrown and trees everywhere and whatnot. We took a few spades up there, started digging, giving ourselves something to ride, but it's mud. You can't ride mud all year round, so we thought, let's go and find somewhere else. So I wrote a letter to Corby Council asking them to build us a skate park, and they said, best idea really, to get other people involved, see what the interest is.
Once we'd sort of listened to the young people and understood what they wanted, I was a little bit concerned at first because they had very low aspirations, the young people in Corby. But this project seemed to me to be something that would lift those aspirations and be able to provide their dream or let them create their own dream.
Mandy came along, she actually managed to get some money together. She turned the whole thing around.
We progressed by doing lots of meetings every week. We were doing lots of marketing. We were trying to get people to believe in what we were doing. And once we'd done that, we approached Rockingham Speedway.
I think it was back in 2003, Mandy came to me and she brought a son who had been an avid skateboarder.
He got it straight away. He said, I think the young people in Corby really need something, but we need to make it quick. We need to make it something that they can really see that they've achieved their dream as quick as possible.
They had long sort of wished for an area, an environment that kids could conduct urban sports in a safe, sort of bully-free, drug-free environment.
So he said, here's a bit of land, here's some money, go and get yourself a skate park and get these kids involved. Let's get it going.
There wasn't a lot of places where you could erect a skate park. And then we had the temporary thing up at the Speedway. That was absolutely brilliant.
Through the Corby Wheels project, Mandy first started the charity. We were proud hosts of that skate park whilst I was at Rockingham.
The first alley was fundamentally a cordoned off piece of asphalt parking area. We went and bought a second-hand set of ramps. We put fencing around it, got some lighting. It was run out of a porter cabin. We begged them, borrowed a bus so we could go and pick kids up and bring them up there.
John's granddad, John, or Pop, as he was known to everybody, would drive the bus, the Adrenaline Alley bus, and bring the kids back and forward.
9 of us, I don't think, were very sure of what we were going to let ourselves in for, being a speedway. But when we went up and saw what was available for us, I think it took us all by surprise.
It was rustic, but it was the kids. It belonged to them. It was the first time that they'd actually really been given something like that in town.
They had this little thing in the middle of nowhere. No one's ever going to go and ride it or take it seriously.
At the end of the day, it was really too windy, and every time we tried to jump, we're getting blown around the place.
To see what one person has done from that till now is just like pretty incredible.
When I met Mandy at Rockingham Motor Speedway, I was at a conference at the venue and I was going out on a break, and in the distance I saw this commotion and I wandered over and I met Mandy. I said, what are you doing here? lines. She explained what she was doing. And it immediately just struck me that Mandy had what I thought was the beginning of a social enterprise. And through the organisation that I was working for, I was able to provide some support and some funding.
After that, we sold Rockingham to Alfred Buller. And at that point, we actually needed the car park back because we had some other uses for it. And Alfred came up with the chip pack factory.
Hallett building, 50,000 square foot chicken factory. Thought, I know what I'll do. These kids, Mandy, what about going indoors? And the rest is history. We've given her 3 buildings and it is the coolest venue and the proudest thing I've done in Corby.
A lot of the things Mandy was offered required a considerable amount of money to put right, even before we started. Dilapidated buildings, no roof on them, you know. Mandy having no money to put these in any way in a condition to start a park.
I remember Mandy saying, we're going to meet Alfie and he's got a potential indoor site. So there's quite a lot of excitement around that in itself. And then we came, myself, Mandy and Alfie walked into the building, an entrance that doesn't exist anymore by the loading bays. And as we walked in, obviously it was quite derelict. It had been a chicken factory. It was quite dark, and there was a lot of low ceilings. And because it was a refrigerated place, there was dividing walls and an unforeseen amount of nooks and crannies where kids would be able to hide away. And so we walked in, and Alfie was like, "Well, this is it," and it was big. It was a vast space. Mandy was like, "Oh, it's perfect. This is I can't wait." I was like, it's so awesome, but...
She galvanised the community, friends, family, any other hangers-on that could wield a screwdriver or a paintbrush.
Myself, I was the handyman maintenance at the beginning, and then Mandy started taking on the young lads from the technical college, carpenters and all that, for experience.
But Mandy continued to come up with the wilder, I'm going to use the word crazy ideas. Like I said, we walked in initially to an entrance that doesn't exist. That's now where the vert ramp is, which, sort of, I think the biggest vert ramp in Europe with a resi. And Mandy's like, let's put the vert ramp here. At that point, that was a piece of car park. Yeah, there was no building. So you're like, Well, that's, the ramp itself, to build a ramp like that is a big structure and very expensive. And the fact then you've got to build a building, and a ramp like that, you go very high. So you don't need any building, you need the highest building on the industrial estate. So the cost of the building alone, is 100,000, 150,000 excess of, it's a huge amount of money. You're thinking, well, the building and the ramp? The thing is, by that stage, I was getting rather familiar with Mandy, so obviously when I'm talking to the lads and we're saying, I think we're going to do a vert ramp at Adrenaline Alley. Mandy sort of dreams bigger and consequently achieves bigger than anyone else. We're doing it. No fence is too big. Generally, we decide what we want to build, whether we want to jump over a car or whether you want to go and do a backflip, and we'll talk about the height, the size and the radius, how steep the ramp may be, maybe draw it up a little bit on the computer. For the sake of keeping it simple, we're just going to choose an 8-foot radius. So we draw an 8-foot line horizontally, and then we're going to draw an 8-foot line vertically. Once you've got those 2 lines there, I'll zoom in a little bit. And you can see how we're going to join them with an arc. So because the lines are the same length, the arc will snap in and it'll be an 8-foot radius. So that's our transition. Perhaps we're going to, cut that ramp off. We don't want it 8 foot tall, so we might want it 5 foot tall. We'll cut it off, draw a line for a deck. That we're going to say is 1.2 metres, about 4 foot in length, and just delete off any of that extra rubbish that we don't want on there. But then basically once we've got that, it's it's a triangle, as you can see there, with one curved edge. We basically extrude that along a path, and we can get hold of this. And the great thing about a computer is we can instantly make a ramp. Click a special tool called Follow Me, and in just about a half a second there, we've drawn 2 bold corners with a hip takeoff going in between the two. Obviously for presentation, we're going to paint that with a birch ply, like the colour of the ply we were using in the workshop. You know, from there, you would go into a bit more detail and stuff. Start putting on handrails or sort of various colours and stuff to make the sides of the ramp. But basically, that's there you go. It's quite a nice shape, bit of ramp. When the alley started, there was a lot of individual ramp modules spaced out. And then over time, joining them together, getting rid of some of the old ones, until eventually your building becomes, should we say, a sea of plywood.
To actually transform a chick pack factory into what is now certainly the best skate park outside of the United States of America, it really is. It's just an incredible achievement.
She turned around and got us the indoor skate park, which we all really wanted, even though we'd never admit to it.
Here at Adrenaline Alley, we have such a diverse range and role of what we do. Anything that comes from normal participants just coming to participate for the day. The school groups coming in, bikeability coordination.
Adrenaline Alley has grown organically over the last 10 years, from what started out as a community project to now a sustainable social enterprise that employs nearly 30 people, occupies 6 acres of land. And we have 70,000 visitors a year, which continues to grow.
The training area is the first area of the park that most people will see in terms of the ramps, and it's specifically designed to enable younger riders or novice riders to build up their basic skills before venturing into the bigger areas of the park. We have sort of 1, 2 and 3 foot drop-in ramps there that'll build up their basics, whether it be scooters, whether it be BMX or indeed skateboarders.
On a daily basis, you never ever know what's going to happen. And watching it progress from the first building that it was to the 3 buildings we have today, the dirt jump area, the media studio, has been absolutely amazing.
Being a BMX rider's amazing. Like, I get to travel around the world, meet loads of new people, ride with your friends, and film a lot of edits which go online. I was living in Reading for about a year, nowhere to ride and nowhere to practice, so.
We came to the opening of room 2 and I had a quick chat with Mandy and I basically said I think it would be so good if we moved up here. Alex was a bit sceptical at the time, but Mandy, we wouldn't have been able to do it without her. She helped us every step of the way. We wouldn't have even known about where we live if we hadn't met Mandy, so thanks, Mandy.
Yeah, and then with that, I'm doing training every week, helping kids out and stuff, where Mandy's helping me be able to ride whenever I want all the time, so it's made my riding improve.
Working from Corby is a lot easier than anywhere else because Alex can go ride every day and then I can still organise everything from home. I think with Alex's injury as well, because he broke his hip a year ago now, the best thing to do was move next door to the skate park and now he's fully back riding, so it's definitely worth it.
Today I'm gonna just do what I normally do on a daily basis and have a warm up and ride around, do a few flips and just stay on my bike.
The lottery funded an area that we've been able to adapt to encourage more disability use. And we've got a fantastic group that regularly come from CBA, the local secondary school. And they come in, they build their skills, they get encouragement, they provide us with the opportunity to enhance our skills, because like everything else, we need to broaden our perspective in terms of who we want to use the park. Well, Harry and Samantha have specific requirements in terms of their support, but also in terms of what they want to achieve. The CBA group currently are doing what they call the Duke of Edinburgh Silver Award, and the children themselves design what they want to achieve as part of that award, and they'll be coming in with a set series of tasks, and the staff and their support will be helping them to achieve that over a period of about 4 to 5 weeks. Harry is a wheelchair user, has cerebral palsy, and therefore is limited in terms of what he can and can't do. We can move him around and get him up and down, and he gets quite a thrill out of being able to go on the ramps in his wheelchair. One of his targets will be to move out of that wheelchair and possibly get onto one of the bikes, possibly the hand crank bike, where he can actually propel himself and work on his balance and his coordination, as well as that ability to propel himself and have some independence in terms of that kind of use. Well, Samantha is quite a good skateboarder and enjoys the thrill of actually being able to do that herself. Now, there'll be particular criteria. It might be coming down off a 2-foot ramp, it might be moving up to the 3-foot drop-in. With Samantha, it's going to be quite interesting to see how far she can go, because she is quite a good skateboard rider as it is at the moment. Pete is probably one of the best cases in terms of what he does. He knows his limitations, and we are confident now within the park, having seen him come here for various visits and over the years, we know that he is safe and he is competent in terms of what he's doing, and we're quite happy just to supervise him and keep an eye on him whilst he's using the park.
I wish skateboarding would be the Olympic sport.
There's talk about it.
A biker said to me one time, skateboarding isn't even in the X Games anymore, and it's not even BMX.
Is it not in the X Games?
I don't know. I think he's trying to mess me around.
Yeah, I wouldn't listen to him.
The secret of good dirt trails is having good dirt to start with and having a good bunch of lads who are going to help you maintain them. Well, this year at the Adrenaline Alley Trails, we decided to give the participants something else, something new, make the trails a little bit bigger. Everything's grown up a little bit. The riders are growing up, they're getting bigger, so we needed to reflect that in our trails and make them bigger. Another challenge and something a little bit more extreme. One of the good things about the trails this time around is that we've been lucky enough to have some of the best dirt jump builders, trails builders around helping us out create what you see behind me now.
The education room which we're in at the moment was initially set up as part of a programme to use it as a venue for out-of-school study centres. And a group came here specifically with the opportunity to do numeracy, literacy and those kind of skills as a way of encouraging perhaps children who were struggling with that within the school environment. They'd come here, have a completely different focus on what they were doing and how they were being taught it, and then go into the park and have a ride at the end of that session. So there was a bonus and a culture of reward really for the children who were putting that extra effort in to improve their skills. We looked at the maths and the numeracy side. We looked at angles, we looked at how the ramps were actually built, we looked at the way the design of the ramps actually came about, and therefore the children were able to use their math skills to actually see how that was put into practice within the park. On the literacy side, we used urban language and almost had them creating their own sort of characters and using verbalization within that urban environment to help them encourage that. As part of my previous role as a school sports coordinator, I came into contact with the Bikeability Scheme. The Bikeability Scheme is about getting into primary schools, teaching young children to ride safely, hopefully encourage them to get onto the roads, ride to and from school and be much safer doing that. We've got young children from the age of 3 and 4 coming in, but it just shows how this facility can be used by a family group, if you like, who can have older children in the bigger areas of the park and still be able to bring the smaller children into the training areas of the park.
I learn my best things from little kids. Some little kid, you want to see these little kids ride these days, they can do all of this spinning in directions that I never thought was possible. So I see some little kid, how on earth do you do that? The little kid just turns around and goes, all you've got to do is just rotate and lean back that way.
Social enterprises are businesses that fit somewhere between sort of traditional charity, voluntary activity on one hand, and then on the other hand, sort of businesses that have a profit motive.
Well, I managed to persuade Northamptonshire Enterprise to actually fund me to start doing some business planning for them, which I did. And subsequently that developed into actually doing a lot of funding applications with Mandy to try and get some funds to do various things and expand and build the business. And I guess from there, I guess I am a little bit of Mandy's mentor for the business in terms of running the finances, how it all works. Mandy can now, actually, she can run the accounts. Mandy can do that now. Mandy can produce a business plan. She can do that, and I think that's just great.
You know, the difference with the alley is this isn't a governmental box-ticking exercise. This is being built organically, around what the kids actually want and what they actually need. And from that, you've got the success we have today.
Pleased to meet you.
You've been skateboarding, have you?
Yeah.
Do you know, when I came here today and I see the facility and I see the work that's gone on and the scale of the project too, it's not like it's, you come into the first hall and you think, wow, this is massive, and you realise this is just one part of a huge project. It's really impressive. I first got into BMX when I was 7 years of age, and I'd just seen the film E.T., and it was the first time I'd seen a BMX bike. And immediately I knew I wanted to get into BMX, and there was a track near my house that was built. Without that facility, I would never have got into the sport. And it just sort of grew from there, and I raced until I was 14, all over the UK, all over Europe, and even went to America to the World Championships. BMX freestyle has grown from being just seen as a kid's sport and something that kids do by building ramps and doing tricks to being a recognised proper sport. It's in the X Games. Potentially could end up being in the Olympic Games. BMX racing is already, but I think people see it as the athletes. They're incredible acrobats. They have amazing skill. They have amazing bravery, but you also have to practice, to train just like any other athlete. So there's a huge respect, certainly within cycling, for what the BMX freestyle guys do. Because if you've ever tried it, even just trying to go over a small jump, you realise it's not easy at all. Even though they make it look very easy because they can be doing backflips and all sorts. And landing it and making it look dead simple, but it's very, very impressive. You see that it's not just for the professionals, the elite level, it's for everybody. It's for kids of all, shapes and sizes and ages, abilities, and it's bringing everybody together, and it's such a great thing for the community.
And that's what I do notice with Adrenaline Alley, is that it brings people together. You see people from other towns where people would say, oh, we don't like them because they're from whatever town and from this town and blah, blah, blah. That's right. And it totally kind of breaks... There's none of that. Yeah, there's none of that. It totally breaks all of that divide.
It's good that we're on site, and I know customers enjoy it purely because obviously if something goes wrong with their bike, skateboard, scooter, whatever, because it does happen, we're here and we give them the service they need. We've got tools, we can do repairs, we can help. We sell a lot of scooter parts, BMX parts, skateboards as well. Our big seller at the store is definitely scootering, just purely because we're Skatehut's known for our scooter service, but obviously we do really well with other disciplines as well, such as BMX and skateboarding. A massive part of what we sell is definitely safety gear, because obviously Adrenaline Alley is such a big place, it's such big ramps as well, like the safety gear is a massive part of it.
John's legacy at Adrenaline Alley kind of gives all our family a place to go and feel a bigger connection, because it's something that's been set up with my mum and John. It's also very personal to me because it's been there since I was about 4 years old. It's a part of my childhood, and it kind of brings me closer to my brother as well, because I kind of see people that used to be his friends, the people that I work with now, they knew John, so they understand who he was, what he was like. So that gives me a good place to go to, and the opportunities that kids have from that as well, how they get to go there, they get to participate in what they love doing. It's something that fills you with joy.
Hi Jodie, thanks for coming along tonight. This is Jodie, she's going to be our model tonight so we can practice headshots and lighting techniques. Okay, this is Tracy. Right, okay, what have you got here then, Jodie?
Well, this is a jumper that I've got and dressing jacket.
Oh, cool. Okay, guys, what do you think would be best for this particular top shot? Bearing in mind we're talking headshots and focusing on light. What do you reckon?
I quite like the black jacket
Yeah.
because of the white background.
Yeah.
I think that'd
Make us stand out more. Yeah. Yeah.
Make
Okay.
it more punchy.
You agree? Yeah, nice one. Okay, that's cool. If you can change into that and just some natural makeup, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, so we've kept your makeup very natural for the shoot. We're down to the lipstick. Is there a colour that you don't like on yourself?
I don't really like that one.
Okay.
But, that one's really nice. I like that.
So should we use that one?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
We've got Jodie in the studio now, so I'm just going to quickly position this lighting behind her. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the flash from behind Jodie and bounce it off this reflector that Chloe's going to hold. So if you want to just get yourself in position, please. Okay, and what Chloe's going to do is she's going to position the reflector so when Georgina takes a shot, the light bounces back onto, particularly underneath the chin area. It'd be handy if you also make the background white. So Tracy, if you could just do us a favour and put the background light on. Cheers. And this will actually flash the background and create a nice white, clean look. Okay, and if you want to take the shot, Georgina, just check your settings, make sure you've got the right aperture. Okay, let's have a look.
John had a lot of emotional trauma, post-traumatic stress he actually suffered with, although that wasn't diagnosed till after he died, to be perfectly honest. But it was evident that he was self-medicating to try and overcome that trauma by blocking his emotions out and becoming oblivious almost to life.
A stranger lays within me, tries to destroy my health. No option left but to destroy myself.
John's self-medication led us to looking at policies and around cannabis abuse and alcohol abuse. So one of the positive outcomes at Adrenaline Alley is that we've introduced a zero drugs and alcohol policy for all our staff and customers. We have the right to randomly test people if we suspect they're under the influence, and people that come there know that, and it sends a good message out.
What I'd like to really get across is the fact that John was a person, and we had little flickers of what John could have been. And he's our nephew, he's a son, and he's a grandson. And he was intelligent, he had a massive sense of humour, and occasionally we got a glimpse of this.
Yeah, I always remember John being on reception and always making people laugh.
Like when he came, you'd just come in and he'd be like, "What's your name, mate?" Even though he knew your face.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, Steve Holmes? And he'd be like, "No, you're not a member, you're not coming in." And he'd just, little sort of...
If you were having a bad day, if you spoke to John, you'd be all right after it. He'd always have something he'd do just to make you chuckle, just that little bit, and just be like, yeah, I don't really need to worry about that then.
And to think what we could have had, it just doesn't really bear thinking about.
I think if John was to be here today, the first thing he'd say, Mum, would be, give me a job. I know he's proud of me. I know that if he was here today, he'd be doing everything in his power to make sure that Adrenaline Alley kept going and developed and continued to make a difference to young people, and particularly disabled people, because John experienced what it was like to look and feel disabled. And it was, again, one of his passions to ensure that people with disabilities could be involved in Adrenaline Alley, should be involved in Adrenaline Alley, and are an everyday part of life at Adrenaline Alley.
Who would have thought 10 years ago, in 2014, we'd have a world-class facility here in Corby? I mean, this is the #1 urban centre for kids in the world. Nothing to touch it. Corby should be proud of it.
The real important thing about Adrenaline Alley is that it's about no limits. There's no limitation whatsoever. Whatever you want to do in life, there's no limit.
I think you can all see the benefits, the positive engagement with young people that Adrenaline Alley has demonstrated in Corby, and beyond in terms of the people that come here, but particularly with local people.
Believing that change is possible in Corby and that there is a bright future is a key message that I'd really like to see to get to the youth of today.
Young people are the future, and to be privileged to be in their zone, to see them happy, to see them express themselves, to see them excited. If that don't turn you on, good luck.
If you look at the issues that are confronting us today, obesity is a major issue that you're seeing in the press every single day. And when the kids come here, they work really hard. And they don't work hard because they're being told to by a teacher. They're working hard because they love it, they want to do it, and they thrive in that environment.
Part of our health and well-being agenda at Corby Borough Council is to see more people cycling, to see more people active. And Adrenaline Alley plays a crucial part in that. We want to see a fitter, healthier, happier town.
Well, I think it's important for kids to get involved in sport or to have a focus in their lives and to have something that they want to enjoy and they want to get involved in and really be passionate about. And if you don't have a focus, if you don't have something to really get your teeth into, then you can get involved in stuff you shouldn't be getting involved with.
Having an Olympian such as Sir Chris Hoy, his stature to come to Corby is a real recognition of how far this town's come in recent years. The fact that Sir Chris Hoy came from a BMXing background and ended up world track cycling champion and probably the best in his field gives me confidence that perhaps in Corby we could have a future Olympic champion.
Mandy and I have talked a number of times about building other projects like this around the country. And for me, that just seems a no-brainer. If you look at the actual cash required to deliver a project like this, it's not so great in the big picture of life, especially versus the benefit of, say, the impact on the NHS budget for having healthier kids.
Adrenaline Alley in Corby will remain the biggest and the best skate park in the UK and Europe. End of. But what we can have is a lot of feeders, if you like, feeders, smaller grounds. So it's like the equivalent of Wembley and other football clubs and other football teams, and so and kids will go to their local park most of the time, but every so often they'll make the special journey to Wembley. That's how we see the future.
I hope Adrenaline Alley goes from strength to strength. I think there's a lot more they can do. I hope they expand their influence and their ability to affect people's lives. I think they've affected people's lives quite positively here in Corby, and I think they can send that message even further afield than just Corby. Mandy's vision is an inspiration. I think she saw something that needed to be done here in Corby and she did it. And I think she continues to do that. The hard work that she puts in, is a testament to that, and I think she inspires simply by her enthusiasm.
Let's be clear here, none of this would have been possible without Mandy. She has shown amazing perseverance, diligence, focus. I mean, she is so driven. She has done an amazing job of raising the cash, building the facility, and as much as anything, understanding the kids and what they want. And I think that's a huge difference between this being done on a corporate or from a governmental level versus actually people on the street doing it for themselves.